Support for this episode of PBS Reno Arts is provided by the Nevada Arts Council. Arts and creativity make us stronger, fueling innovation, prosperity, and thriving communities across Nevada. They boost our economy, promote well-being, and enhance education, empowering Nevadans of all ages. The Nevada Arts Council nurtures these essential creative forces. Together, let's elevate the arts in every corner of our great state. More at nvartscouncil.org. This is PBS Reno Arts. I'm Dave Santina in studio today, and accompanying me is George Lam, the new assistant director. Can we still call you new? The assistant director of Nevada Humanities.
Yeah, newish.
How long have you been on the job at this point?
So since middle of April, so just about a little bit more than 6 months or so.
So newish.
Newish.
You're newish, fair enough. And you were the result of a national search, right? They did a national search to find you, and I think that's always fascinating, the way that people find their next step.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious about that. What was that experience like, and what clicked between you and the executive director, Christina Barr?
Sure. Yeah, so I am new also, not only to Nevada Humanities, but also to Reno, Nevada. And we moved here in August of 2023 because my husband got a job at UNR.
Okay.
And so we were both in Hong Kong before, because in my previous life, I was a music professor. So I was teaching at universities in New York City, and then also for 7 years. And then I moved over to Hong Kong to teach there as well. So we were actually in Hong Kong right before we came to Reno.
Okay.
And so it was a great transition. I believe that in life, there are not a lot of chances where you can sort of completely change your purview and your context.
Sure.
And I think this is actually pretty much of 180 change from Hong Kong to Reno. But we're glad that we're here, and it's been a great place to be a part of this community.
Well, and so as the assistant director of Nevada Humanities, you have probably a whole mess of things to learn and to grow into, but you're coming from a music career, essentially, into a humanities career.
Yeah.
What's that transition like? It sounds in my head like a train wreck.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, for me, so I'm a composer, and a lot of the work that I've done actually has to do with working with communities and oral history, for example, and incorporating that into my pieces, and also thinking about writing music for specific places. And so it's a very natural fit for me to move from my practice. I mean, I'm still continuing as a practice in composition,
okay,
but also to move into nonprofit work where it's very community engaged. One of the pleasant surprises that I've found upon moving to Reno is that it's very, very much a tight-knit community,
right,
but also a lot of folks are community minded and they want to make the entire place better in many ways. And so, and there's a lot of support for the humanities and the arts to do that. And so from someone who is a practitioner, who continues to practice as a composer, who is thinking about working with people and also not just musicians, but also communities and telling their stories, the storytelling part, I think it's a really natural transition to my work here at Nevada Humanities.
Okay, I was going to ask you what it is about the humanities that appealed to you when this search was happening.
Yeah, a few things. I think the humanities I enjoy because they are very much all-encompassing, right? So it for me, I mean, it means different things to different people. For me, I think it's all about telling stories so that we increase our empathy for those who we don't know or those who we are not, right? So to think about how do you use literature and philosophy and discussing religion and the arts and all of those things that we put in a box called the humanities for listeners. Possibly, you think about it in the terms of undergraduate degree, right? So you have humanities courses and things like that versus science, if you will. So to think about all of those things where we're talking about human creation and human thought, but in a way to better understand those of us who are different from us. Yeah. So I really enjoyed that part of thinking about humanities for me.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great explanation. It's one of those questions that comes up, I'm sure, all the time. What does it mean, the humanities? Because it sounds so all-encompassing. So that's well described.
And I love that human is in it, right? So it explains itself, or it piques interest in that way. You know, what does it mean to be human? And in a way that is very personal and visceral to all of us who are trying to understand that question every day.
Right. And so one of the humanities, one of the things that makes us human is writing. The reason you're here, besides me just wanting to meet you and getting, we're neighbors in a sense. You know, we're in the studio at PBS Reno. Nevada Humanities is located directly above us.
That's right.
One floor above.
That's right.
As a tenant of this building. So just as though this is a housewarming. It's a very late housewarming party for you. But also, the literary crawl is coming, and this is the gist of our conversation today, is to introduce that. I'm fascinated by it. I'm excited for it to come, and I want to look forward to it. But I also don't know that much about it, I have to confess. And so I imagine a lot of other people don't either, and this is an opportunity to try to spread that word a little bit. So if you could just introduce us to this literary crawl right off the bat. I'm curious about the name, because when I hear crawl, I got to say, I confess, I'm used to thinking of it being a series of stops with a glass of something in your hand.
That's right.
So
that's right.
This one may be a book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's start there. I mean, of course, it's a play on crawl, right? And so in a way, maybe we're subverting it with some literature in that sense. But it's celebrating the fact that, well, first of all, Reno, and as with a lot of other cities, have these crawls where pub crawls, and where folks have a good time, right? They get together and they move from place to place, and it's a way to experience maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 restaurants or pubs that you haven't been to, or at least in one place, and just be communal and just sort of relate to each other and have a glass of wine or a beer. And so we're taking that idea and thinking about this in terms of a literary focus, right? And by literary, we're also thinking about not just books, but the written word and spoken word. So everything about written down thoughts, spoken thoughts, and in many ways, we're also zooming out for it to focus on the humanities in general. So to go back to what it is, so it's going to be on Saturday, October 12th, in downtown Reno, and we are partnering with local businesses all around the California Avenue corridor, businesses, but also cultural organizations, and we're partnering with them and injecting these spaces with a bunch of different events, including author discussions, author readings of local authors, but folks from Las Vegas and also folks from outside the state. Panel discussions around different themes, but there will also be interactive workshops for folks who are interested in honing their writing in many different respects. There are family-friendly activities in downtown Reno Library, for example. We'll have things. We'll have discussions at the Nevada Museum of Art, but also in to recall the crawl part, we'll also be in different bars, including the 1864 Tavern and the Loving Cup. So we're generating a whole hubbub of activity right in that Saturday, and it's going to be a really fun event.
Yeah, it sounds like a big day, and I'm sure a lot of work for you. You're probably up to your eyeballs getting ready for this thing. So one of the things I did a little research because I wanted to know at least the basics before we talked, and you have a keynote speaker coming in.
That's right.
And every time this happens, this is an annual event, right? How many of these have there been?
Yeah, so we started the first crawl in 2014, and it's been an annual event with 2 breaks. But we're back, and this is and we're happy to be back, and the community is really excited about it.
Yeah, it's exciting to have it. It's something to look forward to, and you get to be outside and inside together. And that's on October 12th. That is just far enough into the year that it's good to have some options there, because you never know what the weather's going to be. So hopefully it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But if not, get into the pub.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Still have a great time. So who's the keynote this year, and what are we going to talk about?
So our keynote speaker is Anthony Doerr, and he won the Pulitzer Prize for All the Light That We Cannot See. And it's been adapted to a very popular Netflix series. And part of the reason why we're showcasing Anthony Doerr is also because his book Cloud Cuckoo Land is one of our selections for the Nevada Reads program. It's a sort of a statewide book club, and so we want to showcase his work as well. So he'll be in a very special keynote event, a keynote conversation with author Christopher Koch, and they'll be discussing his work, and this will be the kickoff event at the Nevada Museum of Art. There'll be a signing that would be right after the event, but then after that concludes, we launch into a full slate of events from around 1 p.m. all the way to 7 p.m. in that area.
Okay, so is the keynote an event that requires tickets?
Yeah, so the tickets are required for that event. We're unfortunately a little sold out at the moment, also with a wait list. So for folks who have a wait list, they will watch out for your email, so get contact for a ticket. And then also, but even if you didn't get a ticket for the keynote event, don't fret, because there are also other things happening starting at 11. So starting at 11 a.m., for example, at the Downtown Reno Library, we'll have Family Story Time that's hosted by the Washoe Public Library System. And then also we will have an interactive activity at the library as well, where folks are invited to decorate and create their own postcard based on the shape of the state of Nevada.
Oh, nice.
Right. So those are different events that will continue throughout the day. And then we'll also have we'll have literary brew bikes throughout the day in the beginning of the day, where those brew bikes where you see them, everyone's pedaling like a mile a minute, but then you move very, very
I have been
slowly.
I have been, what do you call me, a participant,
Good.
A client, I don't know what you call me on the brew bike. I'm certainly not
passenger,
much of a contributor. I'm trying to pedal, but I have done it, and it does feel like your pedaling makes no difference, but I know it does a little bit. But it is a way to to burn off what you're taking in.
That's right. So we'll have our version of a sober literary brew bike, and this is a return from another activity that we've had 2 years ago for the last Lit Crawl. And this idea is that you'll be pedaling with your peers, and then you'll be entertained by a slate of performers who will read and perform, and give you a slight literary bent to your experience.
Okay, so they're reading while we're pedaling.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, and so it's up to us to keep it smooth. Otherwise, we may not have the greatest reading because they're bouncing up and down.
That's right. That's right.
But that's part of the charm of it, I imagine.
Yeah, and part of it is that we're trying to activate the area, right? So we're trying to connect these businesses and cultural organizations from the Arts for All Nevada Lake Mansion Cultural Center all the way to the Downtown Reno Library, to the California Avenue Corridor where the museum is. And this whole area, I think when I moved here, there's such good activity around this area, right? And it's right, next to the river. And I'm always so sort of grateful that I moved to a place with a river as well.
Yeah.
Right. So we're sort of celebrating the landscape of downtown Reno. We're partnering with the businesses and cultural organizations and trying to activate the area.
Well, I appreciate you calling it a river because you came from Boston, right?
That's
originally.
Right.
So a lot of people from cities with sort of large rivers tend to sort of turn their nose up at this and say that's a creek. But come on, the Truckee gets to be a river. We're in the desert. Give us a break.
It's very much a river. Yeah, I would say it's a lovely space.
It is, yeah. And I love seeing events that take advantage of that location and drive people to remember why the city starts sort of centered in that area. It's a beautiful spot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And deserves some attention.
Yeah.
So you also have, we mentioned Anthony Doerr, and you mentioned Christopher Koch as the moderator for that event.
That's right.
That event is at this point sold out, which is great. I mean, I'm glad for it. I also think I saw Christopher Koch's name listed as someone else who will also be having a session of some kind down the road that day. So a lot of local writers are a part of this. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Yeah. So we in Reno in Northern Nevada are blessed with actually a very vibrant literary scene for both writing fiction, nonfiction, and poetry, and slam poetry as well. And so it's a lot of, we wanted to showcase local talent and continue to be a space and an amplifier of their work for our local community, but also to connect them with folks outside of the area. And so, but yeah, absolutely. We'll showcase folks from, of course, from UNR, from the university, but also from TMCC and just local writers in the Northern Nevada area.
So, if, for example, Michael Branch is on here,
of course,
Brandy Burgess, and Christopher Koch, Laura Newman also. And so, how will we come across them? Are they at stops along
sure, yeah,
the walk, the crawl?
Yeah, so there is so we'll have a full schedule of and it's actually on our website now, so folks can check it out. And there'll be sessions, 45-minute sessions that start on the hour, so at 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And there will be these authors will be organized into different panels around different themes where they can discuss works about that sort of have commonality between their works, have discussions, but also maybe intersperse them with readings from their work. And then afterwards, you get to meet them and, buy books and get your book signed and things like that. So that's all happening, in that afternoon. I'm particularly excited about the ending of the literary crawl, where we will have 2 open mic events. So we'll end the day with the community being able to share their work in front of a crowd. So we'll have a storytelling open mic hosted by a Las Vegas performer, David Figler. And that will be sort of the first hour. And then the second hour would be an open mic hosted by Jesse James Ziegler, who's the City of Reno Poet Laureate. And he will be helping us sort of round out the evening with a sharing session with folks who are interested in sharing their prose and poetry.
I like it. I recently attended an open mic night that Jesse James Ziegler hosted at Shim's.
That's right.
Every Monday for poets. And it was a lot of fun. And I really immediately gained a ton of respect for every person who was willing to get up on a stage with an open mic and to read their own work, which can be make you feel very vulnerable. And it's an incredibly supportive crowd. I was so impressed by how everyone was there to pump each other up and make each other feel welcome and a part of the group. And many of them were first timers. Yeah. And would step up and say, look, I don't know if this is any good. And they're all just saying, go for it. And everybody was incredibly supportive. So that was my first experience in that environment. And I thought that's wonderful. And I imagine it'll be the same at the crawl for open mic.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I come back to. Reno is such a supportive community in that, we have folks who are just so excited to be a part of the literary crawl, and they've been waiting for this to come back. And I also especially wanted to highlight that, this is as part of the literary crawl this year, we'll also have a panel that was curated by one of the faculty members at UNR, Lydia Huerta Moreno, who curated a panel that's going to be in both Spanish and English, ¿Por qué en español? Why in Spanish? So this is going to be a panel where folks are discussing about the storytelling part of their work and different, folks from different walks of life in both Spanish and English, and what bilingualism also means for working in Reno in Northern Nevada.
Oh, that sounds like a really interesting one. I'd like that. All of these sound engaging to me. I wanted to ask about how you introduce the idea of the literary crawl to someone who may be intimidated by it. I know events like this they're exciting for all the readers in the world, but this event is open to the public. This is for everyone.
That's right.
And I know you want to draw everyone, not just the hyper literary. And so, what do you say to somebody who might be curious about the crawl, but also might be intimidated by the idea of sort of entering the world of that might be an uncomfortable place for them if they're not someone who feels like they belong there immediately?
Sure. Yeah, I would say that it's an exploratory day. So there's no right way of, putting together a schedule. There's no pressure involved, right? So you're welcome to sort of pick and choose different things that you're interested in, and also to jump in and out, maybe respectful of what's going on in the room, but just to sample all the offerings that we have. And we also intersperse the whole day with interactive activities like, for example, a scavenger hunt, and what I mentioned before, the postcard activity, or maybe brew bikes, where, hey, if you wanted to take a break and just do something on your own to break up the day a little bit, or maybe involve the whole family in different parts of the day, we have stuff for you.
Sounds like it really is a welcoming environment for people, and you can find your area of comfort or interest, because all of these writers write about different things.
Right.
In general, I mean, they're all worth meeting and learning from and listening to. But if you have an interest that leans toward one of their styles, like Brandy Burgess, I know, does poetry. Mm-hmm. Michael Branch writes about the sort of the outdoors, the West.
That's right.
I made a note of Kim Foster, who's is semi-local, Las Vegas. I guess you could kind of that semi-local. Sure. She made a note on her bio that she writes about people at the intersection of food and mental illness, family separation, poverty, addiction, trauma, and incarceration. Now that covers a lot of ground.
Yeah, of course.
And I immediately think, wow, that's fascinating. What is she going to talk about? I want to know. So now I find myself drawn to that, and I appreciate that. She's from New York City, came to Vegas, fell in love with the West, which is a kind of a common refrain from a lot of people who come out here. But I think her story might be fascinating, so I'd like to know it.
Yeah, and that's going to be a very exciting session, because she'll be talking with Sophie Shepard, who is so both Kim Foster and Sophie Shepard were what we at the Nevada Center for the Book, which Nevada Humanities also hosts. We selected for the National Book Festival at the Library of Congress. So both of these books, Kim Foster's book is the adult selection, and then the Sophie Shepard book is the children's selection. So every state and jurisdiction contributes to the National Book Festival in that way. So we will have Foster and Shepard both in conversation, and I'm really excited about this because they will be talking about sustenance in terms of food and nourishment. Of course, as you mentioned, Foster's work has to do with food security and the availability of food, especially for those in need and the marginalized folks and communities, where Sophie Shepard works a lot with regenerative agriculture. And so we're talking about rural and urban, but also food as a connecting theme. And that conversation will be happening at the Food Chat Cafe at the Great Basin Community Food Co-op. So we're trying to sort of put all these themes together and contextualize things, and so to make things a little bit more exciting for folks.
So I think one thing I want to emphasize for those who might feel a little unprepared, you don't have to have read all of these authors in order to go and enjoy experiencing them. I liken it somewhat to a Philharmonic performance, where some people are intimidated by it because they feel like they have to be experts before they go. When in fact, no, this is a performance to hopefully draw you in and make you fall in love with it. You don't you don't owe it anything. Come and enjoy it.
Yeah, and in fact, it might be a really good way to sample a whole bunch of different types of writing in genres and different media that you may not have thought of before. And there'll be a chance to meet them, see them in person. And if you're intrigued, you can get their book and maybe get it signed and, open a new page in your repertoire of books to read.
I appreciate that. As the husband of a writer, I find myself always feeling inadequate when it comes to the conversations about what are you reading these days, So I feel like I fit that mold a bit. So I'm looking forward to it, and I appreciate how you've structured it so that it is very open to everyone, and that makes it appealing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we go, what what can a listener do to get any more information they'd like about this event before October 12th?
Sure. The place to go is our website, which is nevadahumanities.org. And just click in the section about the literary crawl, and you will see our schedule. You'll see more information about our featured authors and performers, and you will also be able to join our mailing list, our email list, and that might be a great place to start as well, because we'll be sending updates about the literary call, not only about the literary call, because Nevada Humanities also has a whole slate of programming for the entire state of Nevada. So we would love to let you know about it.
Beautiful. And I have worked with Nevada Humanities off and on over the years, and I'm always impressed by the just sheer scope of work that you do in the course of a year. It's very impressive. It's a lot. You do a lot with a little.
Yeah, and it's fitting for such a special state where the landscape is so different from place to place, where you have rural folks and urban folks, and it's just the programming for Nevada necessarily has to be very wide ranging. So that part of it, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to work in this organization, because I'm learning so much about the state from my point of view.
Yeah, beautiful. You show a lot of range. You have to have a lot of range to cover the range of the state of Nevada, that's for sure. Well, thank you for coming in and giving us some information. I hope everybody takes a chance to see the literary crawl on October 12th. Go out and experience it for yourself. Before we go, I want to ask everybody to watch Artifacts on PBS Reno via broadcast or live stream on pbsreno.org or by our YouTube channel. Also, read art views at pbsreno.org. If you have a question, maybe a comment or a suggestion that you'd like to make regarding this podcast or art views or artifacts or anything in the arts community, please send them to me at podcasts@pbsreno.org. My thanks to George Lam, and thank you for listening to PBS Reno Arts. Support for this episode of PBS Reno Arts is provided by the Nevada Arts Council. Arts and creativity make us stronger, fueling innovation, prosperity, and thriving communities across Nevada. They boost our economy, promote well-being, and enhance education, empowering Nevadans of all ages. The Nevada Arts Council nurtures these essential creative forces. Together, let's elevate the arts in every corner of our great state. More at nvartscouncil.org.